Hello, John Dorsick here with the Ohio Department of Transportation and the Office of CAD Mapping Services, and this video is going to go over the Standard Construction Drawing VBA. This VBA has been around for a while now, and I went through and kind of revamped it and added a bunch of stuff that I think you guys are going to like. It's going to make using this application easier and faster. So to launch the application, you will want MicroStation open with the Odot CAD standards, and then you can launch it from the Odot tab, Sheet Management, Title Sheet, Cross-Section, or Standard Construction Drawing List. And that it'll take a couple minutes or a couple seconds to open because it's actually hitting a text file that's online, and that text file contains all the standard construction drawing information. So internet connection is required to use this application because that is how it's getting all of the standard construction drawing information. And we went that route so that we can update a standard construction drawing, maybe revision date, or if one's added or removed or something, we can update the text file and post it online. That way we don't have to update this VBA itself and then re-release the standards so that you can get this update. So the text file is a good workflow to make sure that the data that this VBA is reading is up to date and accurate. And so at the top here, it'll say when the last time the note file or the text file itself was updated. And so that's that text file that's posted online. That's going to tell you the last time that we updated it. And then right below it's going to give a little blurb saying that you guys are still responsible to verify that the plans reflect the correct dates, or revision dates really. So it's still going to say that because there might be a chance that we missed an update and we don't have the right revision date. So I am working towards an automated process where I can hit a button and update all of the standard construction drawings and their revision dates. And so we're close to that. So look for that in the future, because then we can be ensured that I can basically run it every day and make sure that this list is accurate. So that is coming, because I think that's one of the concerns a lot of people have using this application. So moving on, you'll notice that it's similar to the previous version. So we have all these tabs for different disciplines, and each tab contains all of the standard construction drawings and their revision date is listed. So as I select the different tabs, I can see the different standard construction drawings for each discipline. So one thing that I have added, so when you hover over a standard construction drawing, you get a little tooltip that gives the title of that standard construction drawing. So like this one is concrete pavement reinforcing, which that was not there before, so I think you guys will like that. So to use this application is the same as before. All of the standard construction drawings that you want to place on your title sheet, you just left click to check that checkbox on. As I check them on, I'll just check on a bunch. So everything I check on is what will be placed in my title sheet. So just a quick overview for maybe those who don't really know or have used this in the past. The title sheet has a table at the bottom in the center, and it's for listing all the standard construction drawings that are used or referenced for that plan. And so there's a table set up, and so this application will basically fill out this table for you as you select stuff on. And so another thing I want to mention is I did add supplemental specs. So supplemental specifications, there's another tab here at the end that will list all the supplemental specs for the spec year that's selected. And so since we're going with specs, they are specific to a spec year. So you can see at the bottom there's 2013, 2016. So if I click 2016, now my specs are listed for 2016. Same thing if I want 2013. So that's something to remember, that make sure you're on the right spec year. And again, they still have those tooltips for the supplemental specs. So I'll click on some of these. So another thing I've added was details. So you see there's a show details button. So that can be launched by right-clicking on any of these checkboxes. So if I right-click on this, the show details dialog will open and will be populated with information for that supplemental spec or standard construction drawing, depending on what you click on. And so you can see there's the name, the date, a URL, the description, and notes. So the supplemental specs have notes on them, the standard construction drawings don't. So the notes will be populated if there is a note for what you selected. You can hide the details box by hitting the X or hitting this hide details. You notice it toggles between show and hide. And to populate the box, you're just going to right click on whatever checkbox you want the information for. So as you can see, as I'm clicking, it's changing and being populated. So the URL, you can double click that and it will open that URL. Right now, the URLs are just going to the discipline specific pages, not the actual page to the PDF. That's something that will be changed in the future. So rather going to this page, I'd rather it go straight to the PDF of that standard construction drawing. And the reason why I have not done that yet is because all the disciplines have different naming conventions and storage locations. And so I want to get all of that all on the same page so that all the URLs will be easier to update and there's some kind of standard to that to make the coding side easier. So that will be coming in the future. So in the future we will be switching these URLs to the actual PDF. And I'll get into more on that in a couple minutes. So that's the details button. So now I checked down a bunch of stuff. If I want to place that, actually I'm going to go over one more thing before I get into that. So the show details button, everyone knows for this 800 spec, this revision date is dependent on when your plan files. So if it files after, this quarterly update day, well then you would need a different date than what's listed here now. And so that can be changed. So it's just by default going to be loaded with the current revision date. So if I want to change that date, I can bring up the details dialog for the 800 spec. And when I hover over the date, after I select the dialog, I get double click to set revision date. So I can double click on this date and I get another dialog to set the revision date. So I can select a year and then one of the 4 months that we have our quarterly updates. So you guys, I'm not going to go to the extent where it would have been a lot harder for you to put in a sale date and me go figure out, and well as the letting schedule to figure out what date. You guys are still going to have to do that as you always have, but I do have it figure out that Friday, so you don't have to select the date. You just have to know the year and in which month, which isn't asking too much. So now it has the revision date. So when I hit accept, it's going to update this date to that. So now when I place it, it will use that date. So there's how you can update the revision date for your 800 spec. Now that's only going to be for the 800 specs. That's the only one that you would need to change. It's dependent on the sale date. The other ones won't have that. So if I change my details to that, you'll notice that the double click function won't work. So you have to be on the 800 spec to do that. So I changed it, so I'll leave it changed. I'll check it on. So now we can place this, and so by default, it's set up so that it will fit inside this table. So when I hit the place button and come over here, and you can see that I have my standard instruction drawings and my supplemental specs that I checked on shown, and it's hovering on my cursor. So to place this, I'm just going to come, I'm going to tentative snap to this data entry region. And so you see it snaps right there. And then I can accept with the data point, and it will actually draw those in. And then just like any other function, it's still active, so I can reset to close out of that function. And so you notice that it knew where to put your supplemental specs, and it has the date that you have set. So now a couple more things on options that we have set, that I have set up. So there's an options button, and this dialog basically is how the program itself knows where to place all of this text. So there's a standard instruction drawing side and a supplemental spec side. And so it sets the number of rows. So if you had a reason to change this table, maybe add a row or something, then you can do it here, and when you place it, it'll know. So the 16 is basically so that the program knows when it should move on to the next column. So if you change it to 17, it would have added one more before moving to the next column. If you for some reason change the row height, you can change it there. If for some reason you change the column width, you can change it there. And when you place it, it'll take into effect those new values. And then the number of columns is only set so that it knows where the supplemental specs column starts. So I say there's 5, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it knows to place the supplemental specs 5 columns over from the start. So it can figure out where to place that. As well as for supplemental specs, you can set the row height and the column width. Now most of the time your row heights are going to be the same, but I'll go over in a second here. Maybe you move your supplemental specs off and it's on a different table or something. That's where this place at the same time comes in handy. If I check that off, I can place my supplemental specs separate from my standard instruction drawings. So I'm going to check that off and show you that right now. So I'll check it off. I have to hit accept to confirm any changes I made. If I hit cancel, it's not going to take effect. So now if I place again, you'll see that on my cursor I only get standard construction drawings. I don't get the supplemental specs. After I data point one time, it then toggles me over to supplemental specs where I could place it maybe wherever if you had changed the table. And so that's where you would maybe have a different row height. So those are the settings. Same thing for the column width. You can set that. So this allows you to fully customize this table if for some reason you don't have the standards table or you moved it or changed it for some reason. So a couple more buttons in this dialog. You have a set defaults button. So if for some reason you have a standard table set up that's different from this one, you can fill out these values and you can set those values as the default values. So every time you load it, it will use your default values. So if I change something, so 0.3, 17, if I change something, when I hit set defaults, it's going to set that as the default values. So next time I load this application, these values will be populated. It won't be the Odot standard. The reset button will reset you back to whatever defaults that you have. So if you had set a default, so say I set this as a default, and then I change a value, the reset's going to reset me back to my default. If I wanted to get back to Odot's defaults, I can use the restore, and it will restore me back to Odot's standards. And again, I have to hit accept for these to actually take an effect. So the last button on this dialog is to select startup spec year. So when I initially loaded this application, you might notice it started on 2013 spec year, when really from now on out, I'm probably going to be on 2016. So I can hit this button and I can choose 2016. When I hit accept, I'm writing a variable to the user preferences so that it knows every time I load this application, start me out at 2016 spec year, so you don't have to select that toggle every time you open it. So hitting accept will do that. So next time I open this, it will automatically start me at 2016. So those are some options you have for you, and all this is explained. If you hit the question mark, it will open up the PDF documentation that goes through everything I'm going through now and all the details about this application. So a couple more things. The clear button will basically uncheck everything in all the tabs. So I clear all, it'll uncheck everything I had checked on. And the last button is a read button. So if you needed to add a standard expression drawing or maybe update a date, you can hit the read button and it will actually read what you have placed and check on everything that it finds. So if I hit the read button, I come over here, and again, if I look down here in my bottom corner, it's saying select text element. So I can select any of these standard expression drawings or supplemental specs. And once I select it, I'll highlight it, and then again, if I look down here, it's saying data point to accept. So I'll just data point to accept that. And it went through and it found and it checked on all of the things that I checked on. And so the way it does that is these were placed in a graphical group. So selecting one, I then look for everything else that is in that graphical group. And then from there, it reads all of the standard expression drawing supplemental specs. And then if it finds it, it will check it on in this dialog. And then I could make my changes as needed. Maybe I wanted to add that. And then I can replace that. Now the cool thing here is that when it reads this, it knows what spec year you placed it at. It knew all of your options that you had set. It remembers your date that you set in your 800 spec. So all that data is read back into it. So after you place it, when you read it again, all the settings that you had are read in. And so that is done through the use of tags. So technically, this is called an engineering link. So if I can open that toolbox under Tools, it is under Project Navigation E-Links. I'll just open that as a toolbox. And so first I can just show engineering links. So if I click that, you'll see all these go blue. And that's where the engineering link is. And I'll hit the edit engineering link so I can show you what's there. So here's where it's reading all that stuff and how you placed it. So it got the 800 spec date, the spec year it was placed at, and these are all of the values for that options dialog. And so when you use the read button, it's reading these and it's setting all those values in this dialog. So when you place it again, you don't have to worry about changing all those back, which I think is pretty nifty. As well as it's going to give you the title. So, just seeing all these numbers here and letters, no way you remember every single one. So you can use this to look what the actual, description of that standard expression drawing, which is nice. As well as that same URL that I talked about earlier is there. And so I can actually follow this link fall engineering, I can click this and it'll actually open after I select it and I data point to accept that selection. It opened me up to that link. So here's again where eventually we're going to get the URLs changed to actually go straight to the PDF itself. That will happen. And the really cool thing is when you print this to PDF using Print Organizer, all these links stay. So in the PDF itself, you could open it up and click on it, and it will open that link. And so that is the direction that I'd like to see it go, so that out in construction, when they're on a mobile platform and they can just open this plan on a tablet, they can just click that and open straight to that PDF. Now, right now, we're not there because we print out, sign, and scan back in, and when you do that, you're losing that. So it's, again, a movement towards the future. So we're not there yet, but it's in place. So I think there's anything else. This does support scroll wheel functionality, as you can see, and that's everything. I would always suggest giving this PDF a look because it does have a lot of great information in it. But that's the updated standard construction drawings. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, let me know. Until next time.